So, I like how, I mean, the episode, yeah, a cartoon show, but they could have just recorded. They could have been like, all right, Geonosis, here, we're going to record you saying something. Please tell us what the Imperials were building on Geonosis. Okay, thanks. And then they could have gone and actually translated it later, especially after they'd earned his trust and, kind of worked with him. But no, instead it's the rings, or maybe it's an egg, or, I don't know, a star of unlife or something. I don't know. Of course, we already know they were building the Death Star here back, since that was revealed back in episode 2. I still wish Lemillisk was involved, but what the hell do I know? I had a thought. Ezra seems very good at reaching out to creatures, but not really to people. I find myself wondering if he just can't do sentience and sapience like some other Jedi can. I mean, he's no Revan, for example. Revan had that talent for reaching into someone and communicating with them and reaching them on a very deep and personal level. It's how he could talk to so many different races, too. I don't know. I still don't actually have a lot to say about this episode. Obviously, we see Saw being Saw. He is still an extremist. He even seems totally okay with the idea of literally causing the extinction of these people. One of the things I do like about Saw is his mentality is actually quite logical. I'm not saying I would support him, and he is, as I've mentioned in a previous episode, far closer to an actual terrorist. But his logic is sound. Your methods are soft, and that lost us the last war. What I am doing is the extreme thing. I am being the bad guy, because by doing this, I will make sure none of you have to go through what I went through. He's not without mercy. He's not without sympathy or empathy. It's just that he feels that ruthless and extreme methods are necessary to win, and he feels that winning is necessary to prevent tragedy from happening. Now, there are still flaws in that logic, but you can see how it flows rather naturally, especially if you don't think about it too much. I also have to add one other thing. He doesn't have the mentality of, I'll be the bad guy someone else has to, which is another thing that we've seen a few heroes over the years use. Instead, he actually thinks everyone should be just as ruthless as he is. There's some problems with that, and there's some logic issues with that, but again, it makes perfect sense to me that there would be a character, a rebel cell, that thinks that way, especially one who contains someone who is a vet from the Clone Wars, so yeah, I'm totally with it. One thing I've started to notice, this is just a quick anecdote thing, I've noticed that in the AU, the Clone Wars leading into the Galactic Civil War feels a lot like a World War I leading directly into World War II situation, doesn't it? I mean, different specifics, obviously, but you could tell how the Second War was effectively directly caused by the First War in many ways. And that's not the first time we could say that about Star Wars either. KOTOR, anyways. So she fixed her jump pack. Yeah, I was actually legitimately happy to see that Sabine got her jetpack back. I was like, yes, exactly, God. And so then they find proof of the genocide. I wanted to comment on this the last time this came up, the last time they came to Geonosis. This is seriously messed up. They gassed a planet full of Geonosians to make sure that they would never be able to reveal the secret of the Death Star. They killed a planet of people. They killed a species off, basically, with very few exceptions. They effectively put them into... there's a term for that. Like not protected status, but in danger. There we go. They pushed them into endangered status, just to keep them quiet about the Death Star's construction project, which has been going on in the AU for about the last 18 years. No, 19 years, I think, at this point. Think about that for a second. And this, of course, distances people like Callus from people like Price, or of course Tarkin, who is arguably the worst of them all. Callus looks at that and is like, God, that's horrible. And in fact, as they kind of infer, I imagine that him asking questions and getting answers about a few things is what kind of led him to, thinking the way he does and end up being a turncoat. But Price? I mean, the problem's solved. What does it matter? And that is, if I just can speechify for just a second, in my opinion, always been the real flaw of the Galactic Empire. I have never seen the Galactic Empire as the bad guys. The evil ones. That's never been my perspective. Even when I was a kid, I was like, that guy was actually decent, and why are they acting this way? And, just... I always perceived it that the Galactic Empire had the great misfortune of being led by extremely evil people. People like Isard or Tarkin. People like, I can't think of his name now, Ars Dangor or something like that. He was an advisor back in the EU, who was incredibly evil. People like Palpatine, who in both continuities basically doesn't seem to have given a damn once he took over, and effectively retired, as I like to call it. And that's the problem. The people in charge and making the shots are horrible, and everyone else is too afraid to do anything about it. Anyways, it's okay. In the AU, it'll be replaced by an even worse organization that then will fall to an even worse organization. That's a problem I have with the AU right there. Oh yeah, and just because a couple people are asking, I use my terminology because it makes sense. The EU just means extended universe. AU just means alternate universe. In other words, a completely divergent timeline that literally and functionally describes these two things. I know they're called legends and canon, and I don't give a damn. So that's why I refer to them as that, for anybody who's curious. That's all I got today. See you next time, guys.